So next up is template images 3-spot tapping. This is for moments that have seriously impacted us, for shocking moments or traumatic memories, images that may be stuck or frozen inside. Now, I did a previous section on this in regards to PTSD, cleaning and clearing shock and trauma, which was my other Udemy course on this platform. It's an important part of releasing the stuck, frozen aspects or parts of ourselves, letting go, forgiving if you like, sending that energy or image into the universal ether. I would urge you to please give yourself permission to collapse any of these barriers, boulders, blocks to emotional freedom, making bridges and providing a personal pool of resources for yourself in doing so. So please watch. Again, this is a video that I have previously recorded on the Udemy platform, but it's so relevant and it really does a good job in leading you through the process of understanding the nature of template images and how to do 3-spot tapping. Hi there, welcome back. So this next section is going to be on honoring yourself and what happened to you, either directly to you or even vicariously, because a lot of people who were traumatized as a result of having to witness things or feeling hopeless and helpless. So we want you to bear that in mind, because we'll talk later and at some point about that difference between shock and trauma. But remember, helplessness and hopelessness when you're observing a situation or you cannot escape from it. A lot of children may have witnessed forms of abuse in their home growing up, for instance. That could be part of that. So it's not just about it actually happening directly to yourself, but vicariously as a result of being witnessed to, and oftentimes as a result of not being able to do anything directly about it. So I would ask you now to consider honoring yourself by making up what I would call your trauma list. And I'm going to suggest to you how you can do that, because we could make a mental note of these things. If it's one incident, for instance, okay, you know exactly what it is. But let's say you're someone who's had multiple things happen to you over time or around you. One of the ways I suggest for people to take a look at that and truly honor themselves fully is to take a sheet of paper. You know how old you are, but let's say you're 40 years of age and you put 0, meaning it could even be pre-birth trauma that you're aware of. But so you can go from 0, and each line you mark an age, up to your present age. Now, hopefully many of these lines will be blank and have nothing attached to them. But let's say you had a trauma, say a fairly basic one could be bitten by a dog, but it registered and caused one of those energy packets because it was traumatizing to you. And let's say it happened at 9 years of age. So where you have the line for the age 9, you literally just put the word dog. So if no one else knew about it, that's fine. But let's say someone took at the list or observed the list and you didn't want them to know what it was about, it would just say the word dog and they would have no idea what it's referring to. But you do. And this list is designed to honor yourself and every part of you that has been hurt or traumatized as a result of these reactions. So it can be a physical list. I would urge you to do that rather than just leave it up here if it's multiple scenes or memories that majorly impacted you and that you still have some disturbance connected to. And what do I mean by disturbance? We've talked about that already. Well, it means a perturbation or a trigger, and that can be a trigger for anger, an outburst, or suppression, or to use cigarettes or booze or drugs. It can be a sense of turmoil, flux. It can be physical, it can be emotional. There will usually be one of those reactions attached to it. So that's what I mean about doing that list and honoring yourself. And if there's one incident only, great, I hope that's the case for you. But if it's multiple incidents, then please honor yourself. And there may even be more beyond that, but by doing what you know for sure. In other words, we're not asking you to try and go to memories you may not clearly have. There may be underlying things that you've forgotten, but let's work on what you know for sure. Now, I'd remind you that there is no need to share this. This is for you privately. If you wish to share it, that's fine. But I would urge you to consider, there's a great book that came out recently by a Canadian, Johan Hari is his name, H-A-R-I. It's called Chasing the Scream. It's all about addictions. And I love the end result is that he believes that the majority of people who find themselves struggling with addictions, it's as a result of isolation and trauma. And you can imagine isolation often comes because we are separated from the authentic self. We're living without having written our own script, and obviously the idea behind this is to have you be able to write your own script and therefore live out a life of choice rather than protection and defense mechanisms. So this is an opportunity to fully honor yourself, and I would urge you to think about it as though you were doing this for someone else you truly love, that you love unconditionally, because you may be your own worst enemy. We want you to be able to be your own best friend as a result of going through this course on PTSD. So I urge you to take a look at that. Please make up your own trauma list so you're not leaving anything behind, but if things come to you later on after clearing some of this, then I would urge you to add that to your list, and then you will know when all these perturbations, disturbances have moved on and shifted. So, hi there, Steve King, back with you once again, and I know you've just been listening to something on template memories that I put together to help you to understand what they are. So what I'm going to do now is actually lead you through the most simple technique that I have in order to be able to clear, collapse these sort of memories. So I'm going to go through the sequence. I'm going to ask you to bear with me on this and actually go through it with me. I'll describe a little bit about it, because remember we talked about your trauma list as well, whether you've got multiple memories of abuse or things you have witnessed vicariously. And remember I mentioned also about 9/11. The trauma there for a lot of people was not that they were there, not that they witnessed it live, but the multiple times they had to witness it on their TV screens, etc., through the newspapers, but mainly in pictorials where the images were just devastating to witness. The towers coming down, people in anguish, people jumping out of the buildings, just a nightmarish situation. And that really got locked in and frozen because a lot of sensitive and empathetic people were having difficulty believing this was happening, and literally happening and unfolding right in front of their eyes in such a major disaster. And that happens around the world. So unfortunately there are millions of people who have had these sort of traumas, and they go through their entire lifetime having them locked inside. So what we're going to do is I would suggest, if you have one traumatic incident that you know is locked in imagery wise, focus on that. And if you have multiple, focus on the earliest one you can, because like a high-rise building, instead of starting from the top and chipping down, if we can start from the foundation by clearing some of that foundation, some of the other stuff will implode because it contains similar elements, similar feelings, similar stuckness, but definitely the feelings. We want them to be able to shift and move. And it also takes away literally some of the heaviness of the weight of carrying these burdens. So we're looking for some implosion here, but we're also looking to clean and clear that particular image of memory. So I mentioned about the high-rise. We in fact want these floors, in a sense, to disintegrate and dissolve. Now, there was a lady called Tapas Fleming. She designed the Tapas acupressure technique, and it was a matter of holding a certain pose and doing that a few times. Now, this final pose that I've now instituted was as a result of a lady who lives in British Columbia. She's a therapist as well. Her name is Jane Wakefield. And what she did, she got people to cup their hands like this around their ears, because we have 5 acupressure points around the ears. You don't have to push in or squeeze, you just hold them there. And they represent the points 17 through to 21 of the triple warm-up meridian. So when you do that, let's say you've got a memory that you're going to look at, a traumatic moment that still impacts you, and you're going to put your attention on that. But as you put your attention, you're going to cup the hands around the ears. So let's do that first. You cup the hands around the ears, then you'll be closing your eyes. I'm asking you not to do that part right now, but that's the next step. I just want you to watch how I do this. So I've got my hands cupped around the ears, I've got my eyes closed, and then I breathe nice and deeply from the diaphragm to make sure that oxygen is circulating throughout my system, and specifically in the brain area. Then you put your attention on the image, on the memory. So you've got that attention on there, and you look and you check to see, as you're observing, is that image moving, or is it stuck and frozen like a still photograph? If it is moving, just stay focused on it, observe it, breathe nice and deeply, and just watch as it unfolds and hopefully comes to a natural conclusion, and that would move on. However, if it is stuck and frozen, then what you do, you take 2 fingers from both hands, place them either side of the bridge of the nose, the beginning of the eyebrows. So 2 right beside, 2 just outside. And then, as you focus on that, this is called the 3-spot tapping point. I'm going to just suggest to you, you look at the image and you start to tap here. And you can tap fairly solidly and rapidly without hurting yourself. So, mind is focused on the image, you're breathing nice and deeply, and you're tapping. Now, after a while, you may just notice that it disappears. It just seems to float off into the air. If it doesn't, take the 2 fingers from sides of the eyes, bridge of the nose, to literally the sides of the eyes. So again, bridge of nose, beginning of the eyebrows there, to the sides of the eyes, and you're staying focused on the image. You start to tap the sides of the eyes. Now this is where anger and rage is usually located, so that can be connected. And then the next move, after about 10 seconds in each of these places, the final point of the 3-spot tapping is under the eyes. This is the end of the stomach meridian. So anxiety, nervous tension, butterflies, that can help there. So if you bear in mind those 3 points, so the bridge of the nose, beginning of the eyebrows, that's the 3rd eye point as they would call it. It's also the pineal gland. And what you're doing, these shock and trauma moments get locked into the pineal gland as a crystalline substance in the pineal. And that's where that light, that frozen moment of time, literally gets frozen and locked in there. So when you're tapping like this, you're actually getting it vibrating, and it can start to move. And once it starts to move, it clears, and then both hemispheres of the brain recognize that it's over, it's done with. As I mentioned, side of the eyes, that's for anger and rage, under the eyes for stress and anxiety. Now, once you've done that, I just urge, if it seems like it's moved and clean and cleared, just go back to cupping the hands around the ears again, recheck the image and scene, and note if anything has happened. Is it cleared? Is it stuck? And if it is still stuck, that's when we go to the inner child and the inner child reclamation, or adult self reclamation, and that will be coming up. And that is when you know you've got a shock locked in there as opposed to trauma. And there's a way to collapse that. But this, as I said, is the most simple way of dissipating and cleaning and clearing one of those template memories. So I hope that has been helpful, and I hope you will give yourself permission to work on that, practice that, or do that with clients if you are a practitioner.